Okay. My name is Dr. Peter Mulinge, the president of Africa Servant Leadership Development Institute. In short, we call it ASLEAD. And today we are so much privileged to share about servant leadership with the governor here in Makueni, just to ask him some few questions, how he thinks about servant leadership, the impact that it has brought in Makueni County, and what he would want ASLEAD to do, and how best we can serve in the Makueni County as an organization. And Governor, I want to start by asking you, people in and outside Makueni County see a unique leadership style in you that does not befit your status as a governor. Can you explain to us this phenomenon?
I, first of all, thank you very much for this opportunity to have a conversation on leadership. Usually I'm embarrassed when people call me Your Excellency or even Sir, because Jesus as man, as Son of God, you could go places and people would not know that this is Jesus. And yet this was the most powerful man as man. Of course, being God, very, very powerful, because our God is our God. But as a human being, even with all the abilities and with all the knowledge and everything that he had, his leadership was very ordinary. Ordinary in the sense of he goes to places and people say, oh, so this is the Son of God. So I think if one follows that example, particularly coming from a Christian background, then you can only follow the footsteps of Christ in terms of your leadership. And when in the secular world, people think that leadership is bossing people. It is them acknowledging that you're special, you're of a special category. You deserve more from them. You even deserve to squander public resources without them being able to ask you, why are you doing this? I think that is not leadership. That is something else. So in a way, even when I'm a governor, even when I was a minister before of the government, whatever position you have, you are supposed to use that position to advantage people. And if you don't use it to advantage people, to recognize people, to nurture people, then it's predatory leadership. So in a way, I don't see myself special. I don't think that I deserve more than anybody else. God has given me the opportunity to help his people to move forward, especially in their livelihood, in terms of their transformation. So I am not set apart from other people, from other human beings, or from other people in Makueni, and because God created us all equal. So, strictly speaking, there is nobody who is bigger than the other. We may come into different, classes, different positions, because some people have slightly more wealth, others don't have, and so on. But ultimately, we are from the same soil, from the same breath of God.
Governor, could you explain to us, how does servant leadership resonate with you as a governor?
The idea of servant leadership, I think when one really looks at the Bible carefully in terms of leadership models, Jesus is rebuking his disciples when they say, they are quarreling about who should be on which side in heaven. He's telling them, that's not it. You have missed the point. If you want to be great, you have to be the smallest.
Yes.
You have to be the smallest. So the Bible is replete with all those examples.
Yes.
And as a result, even doing a leadership course in my seminary days was very, very powerful. You know, I remember students, we actually would cry in class because the models that were being exposed to us of leadership were contrary to the secular models.
Yes.
And we would see how much we have wasted people by misleading them in the name of leadership. So that was really a very important experiment. Of course, I'd been involved in civil society leadership. I'd been involved in agitating for change from a one-party system to a multi-party system, to more democracy, more openness.
Yes.
From early on in primary school, I was a bell ringer, so there was a bit of that. In secondary school, I was a prefect. In university, I was involved in university leadership. But really what impressed me was you are only a leader when you are able to serve people.
No.
If you can't serve people, you can call yourself a leader, but you are not a leader.
No. Your county is known in public participation for project undertaking. How does this influence social capital and the common good?
Picking on the movement of the people to really stand for themselves. We now organized a third level of government, because there's the national government, there's the county government, so we organized a level of the people's government, where from the villages, they have a forum where they discuss their issues. There is a committee which they elect of 11 people, where gender is represented, youth, elderly, faith, and so on. And we had roughly 3,800 villages. Wow. So each of those had their own government where they discuss their issues. When budget process starts, it starts from there, so that the people say what they want. Then after that, we have several villages coming together in something we call a cluster, about 400 clusters. Then we have sub-wards, about 60 of them. Then the ward, the elective, the primary elective entity. And then we have the sub-constituencies where we elect MPs from, and then the county forum. And within this framework of people's government, they make sure, for example, for every project, there is a project management committee, which supervises alongside the technical people and the county administration. And you can't get paid if that committee does not also approve. So initially, some of the contractors thought that they could bypass the PMC because they thought these are ordinary people who don't know anything. But even BQs, we give them the BQs. We have ensured that they are taught a bit about how to read them, so that if, like it says, 50 bags of cement must come to do something, then they keep on counting. They say, you have brought one, you have brought two. So if you don't want to bring 50, then they say, no, you haven't brought 50. Okay. So there is that kind of organization. Okay. So in a way, and of course, even things like when we are giving bursaries, they tell us which are the poor kids, scholarships. Sometimes even when we're employing some people who will work in the communities, after the formal interviews, we take the names to them. And sometimes they have told us that some of the people that have scored high marks, they are not good people in the community. They have done some wrong things, and so we don't employ such people. Okay. At the ward level, when they tell us, because the wards have a certain budget of like 33 million shillings to do ward projects, when they have agreed on projects, we can't change those. Okay. Of course, there'll be flagship projects where they will also have said what flagships are needed for the entire county. But when they decide that this is what we want, and sometimes if anybody tries to change, they are up in arms and they say that's not what we agreed, because they know how to make development even
Okay.
within their locality, within their ward, so that they say today, this year, this sub-ward got something, next time this one should, you know, they have their own sense of equity and equitable development. So the way in which we have tried to organize ourselves, and this is also now at the level of legislation,
Yes.
policy and legislation, so that it's not easy to reverse it.
Yes.
The way we have organized ourselves is, it's not just servant leadership by the top people, but we also want within the communities for that idea to be planted, so that whoever leads in any aspect, in any aspect, including family leadership,
Yes.
that they know that people will thrive if they servant leadership.
Okay. Can you explain the impact of servant leadership in Makueni since Africa Servant Leadership Development Institute, that is ASLEAD, started training your staff?
So I think the first thing is the acceptance of this idea that this is superior leadership, and I think that has happened. The second thing is now people accepting that this training is important, and sometimes even asking for it.
Okay.
Because there's a place called Kambu where people ask for, can we be trained? And when they are trained, the community says, what has happened? These people are not giving us services the way they used to. They are now different. They are more sympathetic, empathetic to us, and so on. So I think we have reached the point where the training that we are having from ASLEAD is defining the way leadership is happening in the county. And we think that this will also go to other parts of the country, and that is something that we want to happen. And we have had some good relationship with the youth when the youth are also trained, so that we begin to grow this kind of leadership from early on. It's not just when people are at the apex of government. So that is also another important aspect. And I think to the extent that there is targeting for community leaders to be trained. And even there is we want to together make TOTs so that the burden is not on the organization itself, but it replicates itself, so that we can have rapid rapid training of many people. And I hope within 2 years this will be achieved, so that one can say this is one county where leadership is socialized.
Governor, I know that you are a politician, and because in this office you serve as a political seat. How can a political skill influence community or practice towards working for the common good?
I think first of all, because we know the primacy of leadership, that things, as Maxwell said, rise and fall on leadership at all levels, and that potentially everybody can be a leader, potentially. I think the political class has first of all to accept that they don't own leadership. They are not the repositories of leadership on their own. The best example of a skilled politician is to make sure that leadership is permeates the entire society, and therefore all these communities of practice have access to leadership. So it's just like fighting corruption. You can't. There must be the political will to fight corruption from the top. The top meaning the people are formally at the top, like a governor, a president, and so on. So that is very critical. So that political will to socialize leadership,
Okay.
for me, that is very critical. So that you can, you know that the less you have responsibilities because others are doing them, are performing them, then that's a mark of good leadership.
Okay.
So that there's that delegation, there is, people knowing that they must appropriate leadership. They must be part and parcel of the leadership. Now, delegation is very important.
Yeah, okay.
And you can decide to delegate or you can decide to do everything. And of course you fail because humanly, it's not humanly possible for you to do most of the things. And even when people will make decisions that are not correct, it's a learning process. Because even you as the topmost elected leader, you make mistakes and we learn from those mistakes and we correct them. So I think it is how the community of practices perceive your understanding of leadership and the space that you give to them so that they can also practice leadership, and it can be corporate leadership, so that leadership becomes predictable. And what you are likely to do, you will find that others will do similar things, positive things, because they feel that there is space for them to practice leadership. And people will feel your leadership. People will realize that this is positive leadership. This is leadership that is nurturing. And then they will themselves also follow suit. And of course, studying together. When you study together, like when you teach us and we discuss and we study together, and then you can show that when you say certain things, you do them. You don't preach water and you drink
wine.
And you drink.
When I listen at you, Governor, I see a sense of leadership, of servant leadership in you. How can leadership that truly serves others be learned by political leaders?
I think really it's unlearning. Unlearning how we have led. Unlearning how we have led before. Knowing that when you are privileged to be a leader at the secular level or even other levels, you are a facilitator. You are a facilitator. And you must listen to what people are saying, to what people want, to where people want to go, and facilitate towards that direction. But I think, first of all, we have to do a 360-degree turn so that we move away from the leadership that have been, have been elected. Maybe I was not even elected properly. Maybe even I cheated. And then you say that I will tell people what they must do. And even if it's not right, they should not complain. And I am there to stay and all that kind of. So I think this is the very opposite of servant leadership. Because even as a servant leader, if people tell you that you're not helping us and you are truly a servant leader, you'll say, okay, can we have another option? Do you have another option? Or even before reaching that point of another option, what can we correct? What can we correct? How do you want it to happen? So that you when you are criticized also, you are not uptight and you are not saying that, why are these people criticizing me? Don't they know I'm the governor? Don't they know I'm the president? But those are not easy things. And that's why I'm saying it takes some while for people to learn and understand why they are leading.
So can servant leadership influence rural development?
I think particularly if the servant leadership is not just of the because as a governor, even if I'm a servant leader or I subscribe to those ideas, the entire Makueni county leadership must be sympathetic to those ideas. Then the community itself, in all its organizations, must be sympathetic to those ideas, and we must try to practice those ideas. Now, if you get that going, then it means that you have expanded the notion of leadership and the reach of leadership and the effect of leadership and the impact of leadership. Because after all this leadership is to ensure transformation. And in the rural areas, transformation means that livelihoods are improved, that people have more dignity. You know, people have values that take everybody along in the proper direction. And I think that servant leadership, this leadership that is empathetic, holds the key to community transformation, particularly when it is socialized to the extent that it is practiced widely. Because in Makueni County and in Africa as a whole, in Kenya and Africa as a whole, we may build roads, we may build health facilities, we may build all manner of infrastructure, but that may not necessarily lead to the transformation of the people. It may not lead to the economic transformation, to their spiritual transformation, to their socio-cultural transformation. So we have to work hard about what do you do so that the young people have possibilities, have opportunities. They feel included in the society. They don't feel excluded. The rural folk, so that, you know, from their farms, they can be helped to farm better. They can be helped to do value addition. They can be helped to market their produce properly to avoid post-harvest losses, so that from one year to the other, they will say, now we have more income. Like there is a special program in a place called Yata, run by Bishop Masika. And there, citizens have learned farming practices, have learned how to work within cooperatives and market their produce together. They have learned proper extension service, to the extent that people who are very, very poor now have good houses. They take their children to some of the best schools in the country because they don't lack school fees. They have even begun to invest in shares, in building investments in the towns. So that is the kind of transformation Africa is yearning for. And that is the transformation that can come from servant leadership.
How can leaders balance their weakness with their strength in order to serve the common good of the community?
First of all, is to admit that they have weaknesses. To admit that they have weaknesses and to listen keenly when they are being told that this is right, and not to intimidate people who can potentially tell them, including those who are close to them and the community. And even sometimes when, for example, in social media, there are people who will abuse you. There are, you know, people will be very, very consistent in terms of negative messaging. And sometimes things that are not necessarily true, you know for a fact that they are not true. But having said that, it is important to still examine what is being said, so that you can decide, is there some truth, even in terms of your hardest critics? Is there some truth of what they are saying? And to be able to within, for example, a government, to tell people, let us emphasize listening. Listening. Let us emphasize listening so that we can now be able to say, this is consistent. We are being consistently told that this is not right. Like in this season, after the rains, the roads are not good. So if we are told they are not good, then we can't say, no, it was only because of the rain. No, you say, okay, that's a problem. Also the mangoes, our system of buying them, although there was the rain and there was the fruit fly, but you start saying, you know, what are these criticisms? What is my weakness as a person? And even sometimes family tells you. Family tells you, you listen, People who are your friends tell you, you listen, and you make them know that you don't take offense when you are told that this is, after all, we are serving a public.
Yes.
And because that's that is the end game of serving the public well. It is good when, you know, people tell you, and then you also find ways of knowing what's happening in the entire system.
Yes.
So that you're also able to say that this is not happening right, and so on. Matters of corruption. One can't say that in Makueni County there is no corruption. We try to control its extent, but you have to be listening, so that when you are told that so and so is not doing right, then you take action. Because the moment you take action, people know you don't also support corruption. If you're genuine, they will feel you. And if you're pretending, to be humble, you're pretending to be empathetic, they will also know. They will all know. Yeah, because you might not be consistent. You might, like, you know, act humble, you may act empathetic and so on, but at some other point, you act in a way to contradict that. So I'm persuaded that if we have servant leaders, and not just saying it, because you can say it, since it sounds nice when you say it, I'm a servant leader. Usually, people should wait to be told they're servant leaders. They shouldn't declare it a lot, because let others say this kind of leadership, you know, is servant leadership, because it is impacting on our lives.
As we come to the end of this discussion, Governor, can you tell us how you would want Africa Servant Leadership Development Institute, ASLEAD, serve you best?
ASLEAD, in terms of even our work so far, as I said, we are beginning to get people to realize that this is actually how we should lead. And even young people, even when people ask for training, but the thing that we are really want to focus on is to identify within our communities people who already have that desire to be servant leaders and have been practicing it without even being paid. Without even being paid money for transport, for what. They do missionary work, so to speak, to advocate for their communities. So if those people are trained and become TOTs, then it means that we can train all our community development leaders, and there are about 38,000 of them from the development committees, then from the associations, the funeral associations, the faith associations, where people congregate, their cooperatives, their, you know, where they congregate to improve their lives. We train those. We have trained most of the executive and so on, and then we train all the workforce. We train also all the workforce. So if within 2 years we can do that, and then also work elsewhere in the other parts of the country, so that this seed is spread in other places, you can begin to change the leadership of Kenya from a county.